Hi, my name is Leah and I'm part of the Got Your Back editorial board team, and today I am joined here with Andrew from Hull Homeless Community Project. So what's your role in Hull Homeless?
So my role in Hull Homeless is as founder. We founded in 2010 and now I'm also the CEO as well. So I look after all the day-to-day running of the charity, sort of our approach to homelessness and all the work that we do really.
Okay, so how did you become the founder? How did you get involved?
I left school with not very many GCSEs when I was 16 and pretty much went straight into the armed forces as kind of a way to escape being young and not knowing what to do and all that kind of thing. Made a career of it, and when I came out I actually came out injured, so I came out with a pension. And at the time I had 2 children with my partner. When I came out we separated, and basically it was just a case of everything was really good in my life and then everything went wrong really quickly, and I ended up basically with nowhere to live, no money, no job, and it was quite scary. I've come from quite a middle class, average, normal, boring family. Everyone kind of does okay, and we don't really worry about money. So for me to end up in a situation with nowhere to live and no one to sort of rely on was quite scary. And when I came out of the other side, it was something I felt like I almost had to do, because I saw so many more people that were in that situation by no fault of their own. So yeah, that was really the sort of the catalyst for it, I suppose.
So do you feel that that's a common trigger for people to become homeless?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's one of the big myths around homelessness, is that it's more often than not people's own fault. They've done it to themselves, they're alcoholics, they're druggies, they've done something wrong, or they don't fit with society, and really that the truth couldn't be further from that. It's everybody, it's you, it's me, it's anybody who hits any kind of crisis, and you don't need to be from any kind of particular social standing to hit crisis. It can happen to anybody, and I think the big thing for us is raising that awareness that anybody can hit crisis, and depending on your support network will depend on how far you can fall before you can be helped, sort of thing.
Okay. What other stereotypes surrounding homelessness do you think that are untrue or unfair?
We've got the big ones, obviously the drugs and the alcohol, and what we always say, since 2010 we've only worked with I think 2-3 people that have become homeless because of drugs or alcohol. And that's something we need to push out there, because substance abuse and destructive behaviour quite often is a result of homelessness and crisis. And I think the common misconception is that everybody ends up homeless because they're an alcoholic or because they're on drugs, which just isn't true. Big stereotypes are most homeless people are people who come out of prison and are criminals. They don't care, they're never fitted in, all that kind of stuff. And really, it's not necessarily the case. And when we talk about homelessness, and I know me and you have spoken about this the last few weeks, when the word homelessness is used, everybody automatically thinks of rough sleepers. And it's quite shocking to people when we actually tell them, well, what about the families and the children and the care leavers and the vulnerable women and the victims of modern slavery? These people have hit crisis, they don't necessarily have a support network around them. They have nobody to help them out of that crisis. It could be financial, it could be a bereavement, it could be domestic abuse, etc. And without that help, they will fall further and further. So obviously some of the work we've done together recently with families in temporary accommodation, children in care, that kind of thing, these people are homeless. They're not in a safe, stable environment that we would call home. And for us, we want to raise those aspirations of those families and and certainly those children, to make sure those children almost don't follow suit with low self-esteem and low aspirations, then potentially end up with low employment prospects in the future, like the parents maybe did. So it's a huge, wide-ranging subject, and we're quite keen to separate sometimes homelessness in general from the different aspects, which rough sleeping is one of those aspects. It's not homelessness in its full definition, if that makes sense.
So what message would you give to other people about those who aren't rough sleepers, who are kind of under the radar?
Well, under the radar is the key message, really. You wouldn't notice a lot of people who are homeless and who are sleeping in cars and caravans and really poor temporary accommodation. Those people walk by you in the street. They're not with long beards, they're not on drugs, they're not sat in a shop doorway, they're trying to go about their lives. There's a high percentage of people that are hidden homeless who have full-time jobs and they work, and maybe their colleagues don't even know that they're living in their cars in a car park, that kind of thing. So really it's just about that social awareness and that understanding of community. And I think community is quite an understated word. I think community, the values of a community say that we should treat our neighbours as we would like to be treated ourselves. You would look after your neighbours as you would look after family, that kind of thing. And it's just really more that awareness that there are lots of people that struggle. There are an awful lot of families in food poverty and fuel poverty, as you've seen firsthand with the work we did together. And those young mothers and fathers and those young children, they normally only really have one chance to fully escape that before it damages them too much to come back from. So that kind of work with youngsters, with young adults, on helping people achieve their goals, helping people raise their aspirations, even things like food parcels and toys for children and that kind of stuff. That's a huge impact on people. That's massive. And the work you and I did together with a young family, that delivery of toys and household items that family wouldn't have otherwise been able to afford, from people that they have never met and never knew, it's not only a practical help, but it's an emotional help and a feeling of sense of community as well. So the impact of that is huge.
Yeah, so that's really important then to get involved and to try and help people as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if you were in trouble, you would almost, your family would help you, and they would help you out of it as best they could. And you know, when we talk to young adults, we sort of say most people have friends they can turn to, and it's about being able to be open enough. And I know from my experience, I didn't tell anybody how much trouble I was in and how much I was suffering. And when it finally came out, my family were there for me straight away, and they pulled me out of it almost as quick as I fell into it. But because I didn't tell them initially, I suffered and struggled for ages. So those people that have the ability to have support need to feel strong enough and brave enough to ask for that support. But then those people who don't have that family network, those are the ones that are really at risk. Because unless, say you had no support network and you ended up in a really bad situation, unless you knew which services to go to and you felt empowered and confident enough to go to those services and those charities, the chances are you will really struggle. So how do we empower people to feel strong enough to ask for help and talk about issues? Well, obviously, Got Your Back is one of those things. It's about empowering people, talking about social subjects and issues, and making sure not only people fully understand why these issues exist, but actually what we can do to help people as well.
During our Say Why to Homelessness just this past month, we talked to quite a few young people, and some of them said that they're afraid of mainly street sleepers and due to these stereotypes that are put around them by the media. What do you think about that?
Well, that's something we've tried to combat the last few years, and again, almost put that humanity factor back into it, because most of them are just normal people. They are brothers and sisters. We've had nurses that have been rough sleeping, all kinds of professions. I think the media has a very important role to play in how we portray vulnerable people in our community, certainly rough sleepers. And with the issue around spice and drugs at the minute all over the country, it's very difficult for people to see past that affliction. So they just see the addiction to spice and they see the effects that it has on people. And yeah, it's quite scary when you see somebody that can't walk or is slumped against a lamppost or in a doorway or whatever. But again, I think we shouldn't be fear-mongering as much as we are. We should be opening up that conversation about who these people are and how they got there in the first place. Do the families know that they're rough sleeping? Do they have any mental health needs? Do they have any physical health needs? Some people that are rough sleeping could be very, very easily helped off the streets, but because they haven't received that support or they haven't felt strong enough to receive that support, they've spiralled further down and down and down. And let's be honest, sleeping on the streets is pretty much as bad as it gets. You know, you can't fall much further than that. And we talk about ending homelessness and ending rough sleeping all the time, and there's always new plans and new initiatives. And the thing is, if you think about it rationally, if we picked up the 20 odd rough sleepers that sleep in Hull at the minute, put them all in accommodation, they all stayed in it, they were all happy, they all moved on with their lives, the issue would not go away, because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people in Hull and every city around the UK that are destitute, that are in crisis, that have no one to turn to, who are waiting to take the places of those rough sleepers that are on the streets now. So it's not just about clearing people off the streets currently, it's about how do we stop these people getting into that situation in the first place.
Okay. I think that's all we've got time for today, so thank you for being here and talking to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.
Thanks.